Welcome to Business Innovators Radio, featuring industry influencers and trendsetters sharing proven strategies to help you build a better life right now.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is Clarence Fisher. Just wanted to give you a brief introduction before the introduction on this call. Had a little bit of technical difficulty with trying out some new technology as I interviewed my good friend and super talented CPA, Jeff Frable. You are definitely in for a treat. It just takes about 40 seconds as you're listening to it. You may hear a little bit of waving in and out as the new technology that we were using was kicking in. But right after that, everything is cool, calm, and clear as usual. So just wanted to give you a little intro on that so that you are sure to stick around. So without any further ado, here's Jeff Frable. Welcome to this week's show where I highlight business owners who I know are innovators in their markets and contact them if they agree, allow me to dig a little deeper to find out what makes them tick, because I know you want to know as well, or you would be here. This week, my guest is one of my all-time favorite guys, just around. His name is Frable. He's up CCK Strategies, which is more than just a CPA firm. You'll find out why I said it like that here, I'm sure. And just an amazing guy. We met before I was in business. He gave me direction and full circled around and met in the marketplace, which is really awesome. And we've become really good friends since then. He's a marathon runner. I don't know if he'll say this, but he's a super dad, and I don't know if the biggest achievement he has here is being a proud band parent.
Oh man!
So hey, Jeff,
it's all that wrapped up into one.
Absolutely. Well, welcome. Hey, why don't you tell everybody what about CCK Strategies and how you're helping clients there?
Well, I guess maybe the best way to explain what CCK does is that we're basically a proactive and strategic tax, accounting, and business consulting firm. We work mostly with entrepreneurial business owners, and we try to do tax, we try to do accounting, we try to do business consulting in a way that no one else in the industry is doing. And we try to do that by being, again, proactive and strategic, not just putting numbers on a form and giving an answer, but getting to know our clients and making them more proactive more empowered and proactive in the process.
That's awesome. I think one of the things that surprised me before I'd met you, we were talking once, and you said that you spoke with your clients throughout the year, and not just on that Q4. That's usually when I talk with somebody. But
well, yeah, I mean, like I said, we try to do it in a way that not very many other people are doing it, and a lot of times people will show up in. Of course, April 15th is the big tax deadline, and people show up in February and March and want their stuff done in a day or two, and then they get an answer. And we don't work that way. We try to be strategic and proactive throughout the year. So that's different for everybody, Clarence. I mean, sometimes somebody may just want to meet once a year before the end of the year, not just at April 15th, but have a planning session. And some people want to do it quarterly. Some people want to do it just twice a year. It's really about, as you know, tailoring it to your client's specific needs and meeting their needs where they are. You don't want to do something that they don't need or don't want, but you just want to meet them where they are.
Mm-hmm. That's great. And so you're known, or actually CCK is known. Another thing that kind of shocked me is as I've gone and met with people at CCK, the culture that is there, it goes throughout the company. No matter who you're meeting with, there's this, I don't even know how to explain it other than culture.
Yeah. I think that's one of the neatest things about our culture is that you really, it's hard to explain. It didn't just show up. It's taken a lot of effort to get there, and something that we've had to be very mindful about and purposeful in what we do. But again, I think the CPA has a stereotype. They have a stereotype of being, let's just be honest, nerdy, impersonal, just not very creative. And our firm does a really good job, and I appreciate what you just said, and it's very true. It's all inclusive. It's not just the partners in the firm. It's not just the people that you talk to when you walk in, the receptionists. It's at all levels, and it's what we would call a culture of care, not only for each other, but also for our clients. And so as a client, I hope that you would receive that level of care, whether you're talking to me or talking to one of my teammates. And just as importantly is the way we treat our own teammates. And we've been recognized nationally for our culture. We were several years ago, we were the number one mid-size accounting firm in the nation to work for. And for the last, I would say for probably since then, the last 5 years or so, we've been named one of the top 100 accounting firms to work for in the nation. And that's something that gets tabulated and accumulated based upon internal evaluations and surveys that are done by our people. So it's not just us saying, oh, we do these kind of things and aren't we great, but it's really our people that are responding to the surveys and saying that, yeah, what they say they do, and these are the things that I appreciate. And so we tend to do a pretty good job of taking care of our people internally, and we do a really good job of taking care of our clients the same way.
That's great. So you spoke about it didn't happen overnight. What are some of are there any, I mean, the awards are one thing, but what are some of the other advantages that you found from taking that time and investing in having a great company culture that you have?
Well, boy, there's just so many of them, Clarence. I think first of all, you get more engagement for your people. I don't know what the studies say as far as the percentage of people, the percentage of the workforce that are engaged on a daily basis. But you and I both know that it's very low. And we're a part of a national alliance, and that alliance will do annual engagement surveys. And our engagement survey for our firm is usually just off the chart better than what they're getting as an average from that the other firms in that alliance. So it's generally a very good score that they're getting from the alliance as a whole, better than the national average by far. But we are doing significantly better internally with our engagement. So our people are engaged. They feel cared for. And in that, I wish I had that survey in front of me, but there were certain questions on there that we got 100% response, affirmative response from our people. And one of those questions was that I feel cared for at work. And you know me, Clarence. I'm a touchy-feely guy. I'm very relationship driven, and when I hear something like that warms my heart. Knowing that when people show up, they feel cared for, and so I feel like number one, when they feel cared for, and you have that culture, you're gonna have a higher resulting engagement from that. That means your workforce is going to be more productive. I think that means your workforce and your teammates are going to be more loyal to your firm. So you're not spending all that money on retraining and recruiting more people because they're dissatisfied and they're leaving. Our people generally stay, and that doesn't mean that we have a 100% retention rate. There are some times when the culture just doesn't fit with someone. It's funny. You can do all you want to make what you feel is a productive and a good culture, but sometimes people just don't fit in that culture, and that's okay. And when we are able to identify those situations, we do our very best to transition them out in a way that's good for everybody involved. So again, the engagement level's high, they're more productive, more loyal, and I think that translates into a more satisfied client base. When your clients show up, they're not talking to people who feel beat down and discouraged and various other ways. They feel like they're getting someone that knows what they're talking about and wants to transition the care they're receiving internally to the client themselves. So it's generally a more satisfied customer experience. And then I think finally, the other thing is that our people, our teammates, are then in turn better. I guess the only way I can describe it is they're better family members. I mean, if they're coming to work and they're feeling cared for and they're engaged and productive and loyal, ultimately that translates to a better family life, I believe. We go out of our way to we trust our people. We have opportunities and abilities to work remotely. And so when we're in the thralls of a busy season, whether that's in April or September, we get our work done at the office, but then even in the busiest times of our years, we have, we'll have people leaving at 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon because they've got a kid that's got something going on at school, or they got football practice, or they've got soccer practice or whatever. And we're able to provide the opportunity for those teammates to go and spend time with their family. But then there's additional work that needs to get done. They can do that at home. They can do it remotely and do it in an environment that's really not much different than if they were in the office from a technology perspective. It's pretty amazing. We can be in the office one day and I could be communicating with somebody and not even really know that they're remote. I may think that they're a few offices down when in reality they're actually at home. So I think when you have that opportunity to be flexible, I think that ultimately transcends into a happier family. I mean, there are times for all of us when we have busier seasons than others, and those can be a little bit discouraging. But when you can be flexible and spend as much time with the family as possible during those times, I think it makes for a better home life. So I think that all wraps up into why it's important to have a good company culture.
Well, there's, of course, all of those are great advantages, and we all want them. Again, there's that investment. I mean, what do you think are some of the fears or obstacles that a business owner may have that may keep them from taking that because it's not going to happen overnight?
Yeah, I think the first one is exactly what you said there. It's too expensive. An expense can be a physical, tangible expense, whether it's the cost of training or the cost of a program or something like that. It can be the intangible costs of time, of emotions. And it's funny also because it could be that you don't have the right people in place. In other words, I may want to implement some sort of program or have my culture be a certain way. I mean, let's put it this way. We may all there's some people that don't realize the importance of a touchy-feely culture like that. They may think that we're going to show up and we're going to get done. We're going to do our work and we're going to get done and we're going to be done for the day. And we don't need that stuff. And sometimes that works. And I think if you fill your organization with that type of person, it might be able to work. But when you bring a bunch of different people together, the chances of all that coming together and being, the same, I think are pretty remote. But if there's things that you want to implement, but you can't implement them because you're not really that type of person, or you don't have that skill set or that level, you have to get the right people in place to do those things. And we internally, we have people that, believe it or not, just their main priority is to care for people and to have an understanding and knowledge of if someone's got family in the hospital and what's going on with them emotionally and with their families, and just having that knowledge, because we can get so involved in our day-to-day activities that sometimes we lose sight of what's going on in other people's lives. So it's important for us to have some people that have their eyes on the lookout for those kind of things. But I think ultimately it's the expense and the time. I mean, we've spent quite a bit of time and money implementing programs where we get to understand the individual strengths of our teammates. And so everybody goes through a testing process, and that costs money to do, and it costs time to do. But at the end of the day, we have 100 or so people that we know their top 5 strengths. And what that translates to is the opportunity to go in and say, this is not an area that you really need to be focused on. If you need to be futuristic or strategic, and that's not really your strength, then maybe you shouldn't be doing this type of work. But if you have a consistency or a responsibility strength or a harmony strength, and I'm speaking from personal experience here, maybe you should be doing this other thing. And ultimately that translates into, if people are working out of their strengths, they're generally, again, they're happier, they're more productive, they're more engaged. Another thing that we've done is not only go through testing to understand where strengths are, but we've done some recent training and some recent testing to understand where everybody's appreciation language is. So if you remember the 5 love languages that came out by Dr. Chapman years ago, and it was basically a marriage strategy, a relationship-driven understanding of people in a marriage to help your marriage. They've altered that to the workplace, and so it's really 5 the languages of appreciation in the workplace. And so it's important for us to know that if we're trying to encourage people from a monetary perspective, in other words, handing out bonuses or handing out gift cards and saying, thank you so much for everything you're doing. But that person is really driven more by a word of appreciation, a word of affirmation, and the money really doesn't mean that much to them, or the gift card doesn't really mean that much to them. We want to know that, because we want to be able to show appreciation to people in a manner that really hits home with them. And that's not a way to manipulate them or anything like that. It's just a manner, it's an opportunity for us to show care and to go, I know this is going to speak to you more than if I did this other thing. So I just really want you to know that we appreciate you. So we're going to show that appreciation in this manner. But all of our people have gone through that process recently. And so in any teammate's office or work area in our firm, you'll see 2 different placards or 2 different things on their desk. One is showing their 5 areas of strength, and the other one will show their primary languages of their primary language of appreciation. And again, that does not happen overnight. That takes time, and it takes money, and it takes sacrifice, and it takes a commitment to go. And we're going to implement these, and we're going to do our best to follow this plan.
Wow. Last week we had on Kevin Burr at Barracuda.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, I know Kevin.
He spoke a lot about those same things of knowing the strengths of your team, and they have those same signs at the desks. So I'm hearing a repeating theme here that I think we should all take notes. And I was going to ask you, what are some of the pitfalls and common mistakes that maybe business owners make when they go out and they embark upon creating this great culture? And you named one of them of avoiding appreciating in the wrong way, because you could be investing in this person. Love languages, especially in marriages or whatever, you can say, hey, I am a words of affirmation, and so that's the way that I love on you, but you don't receive that because that's not your love language. And so what you're saying is that's the same way in the workplace.
Yeah, absolutely. And they're actually very similar to the love languages. I think they've altered the physical touch one a little bit. And, because there's obviously that's not appropriate in the workplace, but whether it's a word of affirmation or a gift, or spending time, acts of service, they're very similar to the love languages.
Right. What inspired you to become a CPA?
Well, two things. I think number one, it just kind of seemed to click with me. That's kind of the professional response. The funny story response is that I had a crush on my accounting teacher in high school. So that's the story I love to tell. But I took my first accounting class in my junior year in high school, and took 2 years, junior year and senior year. And at that point in time, it was it was a little bit different when we were going through college back then. It was almost like, you need to know what you're doing when you go in, and that seemed to click with me. And so I followed that course, got an accounting degree. And when I came out of school, I really didn't know because accounting is such a huge area. It's such a huge industry. There's so much to do and so many different paths to go down. And I ended up getting a job doing auditing for ministry, nonprofits, and governmental entities. And that was my main job for about 7 or 8 years. And then we've talked through that story several times, Clarence, how God moved in my life and moved me to CCK 19 years ago. And I think it was 19 years ago. And I went from what I call the dark side, from the auditing side to the tax side, and I never looked back. Tax was just so much more. I'd use the term fun to do. It's just, auditing is something where you go in, you say, hey, this is how we're going to report the historical results of what you did, and say that everything's okay. Those are really technical terms I'm using there, but the tax side is you have the opportunity to go in and be proactive and really more strategic. And there's just really nothing more fun than going, hey, this is the way things have been done in the past, and if we did A, B, and C differently, that's going to result in X number of dollars back in your pocket. And by the time you've paid me, you're still going to have, X dollars more in your pocket. And creating that value, I think, is the thing that has solidified that professional choice for me over the last 20 years. And so that's kind of how I got started. And it's been a crazy ride and a fun ride, but I'm here for good now. I mean, after 20, almost 30 years in the profession, it's been a good ride.
I have to insert hot for teacher in the.
Oh yeah, right. Well, now you're touching on my love for all things 80s, and we
I
could
know.
spend another hour talking about that.
I know. I know. And let's not get started on Disney, right?
Yeah, no. Well, the one thing I will say about Disney, because you and I have had several conversations about Disney, and you know how I love Disney, and the memories we've created as a family going to Disney. But really, my dream is to really change, to take CCK and make it a Disney experience. I know that may sound crazy to some people, but when you walk into a park at Disney, it's a magical place. And I think if we could translate that into the accounting and tax and industry, where the moment you walk off the elevator, there's just something different about what we do. There's already something different, but I want it to be felt in a different way. People don't mind going to Disney and spending the money. And I want that same type of atmosphere where people feel heard, and they feel understood, and they feel cared for. And at the end of the day, they go, I just can't explain why we're at CCK. I just know that it's the best place for us to be. And so I'd love to see that translated into our industry and into our office.
That is great. You explained that so well. That's exactly how it is. Can you share a lesson that maybe you learned early on in business that affects the way that you do business today?
Well, let's see. I tend to think through areas where I fall short, and I think one of the most. I can't give you a specific example, but those. I think it's so important in business today to be upfront and to have an open line of communication. And I know when I mess up and I'm not doing the best job possible, it's generally because I'm not being as communicative as possible. And I know that kind of dives down a little bit into my psyche, and in my strength is harmony. And sometimes I feel like if there's any little bit of difference there, that's in my mind, that's not harmony, and I tend to kind of shy away from that. And where I'll make the mistake is I'll err on the side of not communicating as well as I should have. And so, I think in business today, again, that kind of goes back to the Disney experience. If you can be just over the top communicative with your clients and allow them to know every step of the way exactly where they are and where you are and what to expect. And so there's absolutely no surprises. I think that's one of the best ways to do business today, for sure.
I love that. I love that. So in closing here, I mean, we covered. I really appreciate it. You gave some tangible steps that we can take. I never thought about having someone whose sole purpose is to love on people. We just brought on an account manager here. I guess his sole purpose is is to call and visit with, and make sure that we're delivering on our promises. But I think that's taking it another step to actually. You're talking about loving on people within your company, right?
Well, actually, we're in the process. It's interesting you brought that up, because that's what I was referring to initially. But we're also in the process of talking about not necessarily bringing on, but changing descriptions so that there's more of that external, like you're talking about. Having those conversations, because the truth is, we talked about stereotypes in our industry, but not everybody in our industry has those interpersonal elements and strengths. And so they can do a really good job on your taxes, but sometimes they may not be able to communicate as well. And so what we're talking about is having someone internally that does a lot of that external outreach and bridges the gap between the client and CCK for the purposes that you're talking about. How was your experience? Were you satisfied? Were you properly communicated with? Were there any surprises? Because one of the really cool things about that is when you get someone independent in there, it kind of, if someone was not completely satisfied, it kind of diffuses the situation a little bit when someone who wasn't involved calls to check and to legitimately care. Not I'm just doing this because I have to, but because we do care. And so, yeah, we're in the process of talking about having someone doing that externally, and I think it's extremely important.
That's great. Yeah, he's a high context person, so I think he'll do great in that role. So as we okay, so I'm sitting here, I'm listening, and I am like, okay, we need to create a better culture. What do you think the most important question that a business owner needs to ask themselves when they're considering investing the time, investing the money that they need to in order to begin creating that?
Oh, I think the most important question is why. Why are you doing it? Because if you're doing it because everybody tells you need to be doing it, then you're probably doing it for the wrong reasons. In other words, I feel like if you're doing it because you feel like you have to, you're probably doing it for the wrong reasons, and therefore the foundation that you're building upon is probably not very solid. If you're doing it from the perspective of I care about people, we need to care about people, we need to do a better job just taking care of people, I think you're starting off in the right direction. At the end of the day, we have to make money, right? I mean, that's why we're there to ultimately provide from an individual perspective, to provide a living for my family, for the family of those that we are taking care of. They're part of our team. So, I mean, we can't just sit in a fairy tale world and just not get the job done. So, and we have to do all this in a manner from the perspective of we're not doing it to get something. We're doing it because we care about people, and we know that we're going to get a good return on that. But again, I hope I'm making myself clear that we're doing it because we care about people. We're not doing it just because we want to it's going to make people better and we're going to make money. Otherwise, I think that starts to, at some point, unravel. So again, I think the number one question is why are you doing it? And then once you get comfortable with why you're doing it, and in my opinion, doing it for the right reasons, then the question is, well, how am I going to do that? And do I have the tools that I need? And do I have the people that I need? And that's all relative. I mean, it's the same process and question, I think, for you, Clarence, that has a few people working for him, as it is for us who have 100 people working for us. Just the number of people that we use to implement the process is different. For you, it may be just one person. For us, it may be two or three. And but I think it goes back to why do I want this? Why am I doing it? Why are we doing it? And then the second question is how. And sometimes it's okay to reach out to people and talk to people and get that external understanding and not only advice but recommendations on how to implement. It's not always a real natural thing to do, and it's okay to get that external input, I think, in order to get going down the right roads.
Cool. It's okay to get help.
It's okay to say I need help.
Yeah. So in evaluating a CPA, then what do you think the most important question should be?
Well, I think it starts with, do I need a CPA? I mean, that's how our relationship got started, Clarence. I love the story that you and I have about at the time. It just wasn't the right. It's not that you didn't need a CPA. It was what level of CPA did you need? And so as that becomes more and more imperative to someone, I mean, you want someone you just don't want someone that's going to put numbers down on a form and give you an answer and say, I'll see you next year. You want someone that's going to be proactive, to be strategic, to be have communicative, asking the right questions. I mean, we ask a ton of questions, and a lot of our new clients will say things like, "Well, I've never been asked those questions before," or "I've never had this kind of conversation." I think when having those conversations and asking those questions, I think when you're evaluating CPA, ask them if or try to figure out if they are asking questions about the here and now only, or are they asking questions about what's going on down the road, because you may not want to be structuring and getting an answer for today that's just applicable to today. You generally will want to be strategic about where you are today in order to get somewhere down the future. So, are they asking the right questions? Are they, again, being proactive and strategic? And are they creating value? At the end of the day, we want to have a situation where there's more money in our clients' pockets than there are in ours. In other words, if I can't save for you, create the value for you that covers the what you invest in our firm, then you probably need to be with somebody else, and that's okay, because things change and times change and situations change, and as happened with us, I want to be around when you need me, not just because I want $1 from you. And so I think those are the things that you ask and that you look for when you're trying to evaluate the best CPA to be working with.
I think that is so true, all of that. And, I will forever probably sing the praises of CCK, and definitely the character of you. Just really quick, so that people have context. When I had an idea for a business and was recommended to Jeff, and he set the meeting. I came in, and the team came in, the heavy hitters came in with them, and and speaking with me, it was clear to both of us. Actually, I think it was clear to me first that I was overstepping. But I think big. But the big thing that came out of that impacted the way that I do business even today, and is that when you spoke to me, you did say, "Hey, this is how it makes sense for us to work together." Right. So when you're at this spot, then it will make sense. And I left as a person who had not started my business yet with this sense of, oh my goodness, okay, cool. I know where to be. I know what to do, and I will double back and meet with him one day. And we came full circle, and it was just really cool to be able to reconnect and be where we are today. But that impacts how I do business too. When I'm sitting with someone and they're just not ready, it's not you give them that encouragement. You give them the steps that they can take and help them out. And I think that spoke volumes before we even knew each other. So I appreciate that. So how can someone find out more about you, Jeff, and CCK, and how can you help them?
Well, I guess there's the tradition. I'll say there's the traditional ways to find out more about us. You can check out our website at cckcpa.com. That's probably the best thing to do. And then there's always giving me a call at the office. I'm happy to, me, I'm happy to talk to anybody. I love to serve as a resource, and I love to answer questions and if it makes sense for us, to do something, that's great. And if not, and if I can just help someone, that's great too. But our number at the office is 918-491-4036. And then my email address is Jeff, Jeff, at cckcpa.com. Those are the best ways to get in touch with us.
Sweet. Speaking of sweet, are you training for a marathon right now?
I am. Yeah, I'm running. I'm going to run New York City in November. And speaking of sweet, I need to lay off them because my weight is up. But I just the big news is I got confirmed yesterday I got confirmed yesterday for the 2019 Boston Marathon. So, you remember that journey. I mean, 2 years ago, it was my first one and it was a dream come true. And now I'll be running my third one in a row. And, I'm just so thankful for that opportunity. It's been such a great journey, but yeah, New York City and the first weekend in November. That's about 7 weeks away.
Okay. So, either you can put the brownies that I sent on the shelf, or save them for a treat.
Well, if I run enough during the day, a certain day, I'm more than happy to participate in.
Okay. All right. Great. Well, thanks a lot, Jeff, and definitely good luck on the run, and thanks for stopping by.
Anything for you, Clarence. Anything for you.
All right. Well, go out and own the block, as we always say. We'll see you next week.
Thanks for listening to Business Innovators Radio. To hear all episodes featuring leading industry influencers and trendsetters, visit us online at businessinnovatorsradio.com today.